Kaity, it's great to have you here. We had Alex Kendall on last year, and he was telling the big story about surfing these big waves. And lo and behold, you surfed a huge wave right into a Nissan deal. Congratulations on the deal. How did it come about? How are you going to scale it?
Thank you. Yeah, Grayson, look, really, really glad to be here. So thrilled to be talking again. And yeah, we recently announced our partnership with Nissan. It has been months in the making, but they've been really exceptional. We're thrilled to be working alongside one of the world's leading OEMs and to be launching our technology in their vehicles in 2027, which will be here before we know it.
Why 2027? Was it a development timeline, or is that just based on the design of the architecture of what Nissan's developing?
Yeah, 2027 aligns with the launch of their next gen ProPilot technology.
Nissan's a Japanese company. I'm extremely bullish on the Japanese market. I think it's one of the most important autonomy markets in the world. Will these vehicles be in Japan? Will they be global, or where do you see them being deployed?
Yeah, we can't talk too much about details, but we certainly look at OEM deals generally as one of the benefits of going direct to licensing our technology with an OEM. And one of the benefits of our scalable approach to technology is that we've got the ability for global scale. So by deploying on consumer vehicles and without requiring HD maps, our vehicles will be able to traverse, many countries, many geographies, all without a geofence.
You've released footage from Germany, Canada, United States, United Kingdom. How is this technology proven to be so scalable? And I say that because you did release a public data set on how when you go to a new country, or my daughter would say a new land, you're able to get the driver to drive faster.
I love that you've been keeping up with our footprint. It's been a really exciting, I would say year, but gosh, it's only been 6 months since we've been in all of those new lands, as your daughter would say. Our technology is scalable because we use end-to-end AI. So the same vehicle intelligence that powers our vehicles in the UK, powers the ones in the US, in Canada, in Japan, in Germany, and watch this space because our vehicles in multiple continents are actually currently on a roadshow. You'll see them popping up all over new cities, new states, new countries. But by using end-to-end AI, it means that we don't operate in a geo-fence. It means that we can go new places sight unseen. We call that zero-shot testing. And we can do so incredibly efficiently. So we recently published, sounds like you might have seen, that when we took our vehicles from the UK to the US, we were able to generalize the technology, so show the same level of performance. We were able to show the same level of performance in the US with 500 hours worth of data. And that is incredibly efficient compared to more traditional approaches to autonomy. We did that in about 8 weeks. And the 8 weeks, transparently, was a matter of fleet size and speed. You could scale that up if you had more vehicles. Working double time because it's about 500 sampled hours, so the right data that you select from that subset. And when we went and took the same fleet to Germany, we actually saw a 3x uptick in the performance for zero shot. So we were 3 times faster to generalize our technology in country number 3 compared to country number 2. And we're excited to continue to show how that generalization accelerates as we go into new markets.
Japan, you're testing now. Are you expecting that to accelerate now that you're testing in the Japanese market?
Yeah, we've seen similar results in Japan. Excited to be able to publish those soon. And I mentioned that we're on a roadshow. Same goes in Japan. So being able to take our fleet that's based in Yokohama and Tokyo and take them all across the country.
So the curiosity factor steps in. So in England, you drive on the left-hand side of the road. Japan, they drive on the left-hand side of the road. America, we drive on the right-hand side of the road. How do you train the system to understand the nuances in road design and just let's call it general driving habits of these different markets that you're expanding to?
It's a great question. And notably in the example I gave, taking the fleet from the US to the UK, that's of course opposite side of the road. The key thing here is that because we use end-to-end AI, we're not hand coding or literally training the system on the opposite side of the road, which is what inherently makes it more scalable. So the more data that we ingest, the more intelligent the underlying vehicle intelligence gets. And think of it just like you or I, right? We're both American, I know. So we both learn to drive in the United States. You come to the UK and it might take you some adjustment period of, okay, that's right, I've got to be on the opposite side of the road. Some of these street signs look different, but you're certainly still able to drive. It just takes a bit of adjustment. Same thing with our vehicle intelligence. The same underlying principles apply to the driving task. And then we use that efficient subset of data to sample additional hours that are specific to the market. So that goes from everything from different rules of the road to also different driving cultures that we're able to adapt to, because we all know that each city has unique aspects and features and different driving techniques depending on what drivers you're encountering.
And I want to ask you about an edge case. Alex went for a ride with Sir Richard Branson and posted a video about to open a Virgin hotel, which I think was a brilliant marketing idea because now you're part of Virgin lore, Virgin history. But they drove by a pub, love pubs, and there was an individual sitting on the curb, another individual sitting in the road, and the Wayve vehicle didn't even hesitate, very smoothly just went around that individual. And Sir Richard made a comment to Alex, wow, that was impressive. The vehicle didn't hesitate. How is it able to do that?
Yeah, and this is where I think our technology using end-to-end AI really shines. So we think about, again, we don't have to hand code rules. The vehicle learns through ingestion of data and learning the ways of the world. Again, very human-like behavior. That's what you or I would have done, right? We can seamlessly maneuver through crowded streets, through vulnerable road users, or through pedestrians sitting outside of a pub. And so what's amazing about our technology is that it's really ideal for solving that complex long tail of scenarios that you simply, it's nearly impossible to account for if you had to hand code every scenario. I don't know how far down on the list, pedestrians outside of a pub would be, but it would be pretty far down there. Yet our vehicle is able to do it because it's got the intelligence of how to interact with the world safely.
Your vehicle's smart. There's no other way to say it. It's a better driver than I am. I get distracted and I think about things, and lo and behold, you have to take decisive action there. The end-to-end AI approach to me says scalability, that you're able to scale this. And also to me, it says that you're able to usher in the era of personally owned autonomous vehicles. When you're speaking with OEMs, is that one of the incentives, the things that they're looking to do potentially?
So with the personally owned piece or the scalability, or both?
Both.
So scalability, absolutely. Our business model, just to be clear, is we're licensing our vehicle intelligence, our software, directly to OEMs. And we all know that OEMs don't sell a vehicle in one city or one state or even one country, right? When they build these vehicle platforms, they're building them for global scale, and that's how they're profitable. They have to amortize the incredible costs of making a safe, performant vehicle. They have to amortize that over global production volumes. And so they're looking for a technology partner that can give their end consumers a really performant solution for autonomy that also scales globally. That means that it can be deployed across many countries to many consumers. And it also means that when the consumers use that vehicle, they're not limited to where they're able to use the features. They're not limited to mapped stretches of highways or only highway or only urban. When end consumers will use Wayve's technology, it'll be true point-to-point driving. So you could leave your driveway, drive an hour or two to work or run errands. The vehicle will park at your final destination. And to start, it'll be in an L2 system where you monitor that whole trip and you supervise, but the vehicle intelligence will do all of the maneuvering from point A to point B. And then our vehicle technology is also able to be upgraded over the air. So depending on the vehicle hardware, we can take that L2 plus technology that drives point to point, upgrade it to L3, and then all the way to L4 as well, if the platform is capable. So scalability, absolutely something that is top priorities for our customers.
You need point to point. There's an OEM that gave me a test vehicle and only worked on the highway because it had to be quote unquote mapped. And so, okay, so I'm playing with the thing, trying to turn it on. I'm on the on-ramp. I can't get on the on-ramp. Oh, this is useless. I have to get on the highway over 2 lanes before I can activate it. And I was going to the market, and then I had to take over to get on. I was like, okay, this is pointless. This is useless. You need to be able to go point to point. To me, that's one of the value adds there. So obviously, reading your public statements, it's very clear that you're building a licensing business, that you said you're going to have multiple OEM partners. From an over-the-air update aspect, how will the software update? Are you going to have to write special kernels for each OEM, or how will that work?
So when we're working with OEMs, we're looking at, of course, providing a base technology that's deployable, quote unquote, anywhere that they're selling their vehicle platforms. And we work with the OEM to determine, what's the frequency by which the over-the-air updates will be deployed. Of course, the roads are always changing. ODDs are often expanding. OEM footprints, of course, they're going to want to make them as sprawling and diverse as possible. And so the over-the-air upgrades will continue to accelerate both increased performance for edge cases and unusually encountered things. It'll also increase for a diversity of footprint and use cases, and also the way that roads change, right? We could drive in a city. Well, I'm sitting here in London at our headquarters, and I can say that when I traveled to work last week when I was commuting, this traffic certainly looked different and the construction looked different than even it does this week. And so over-the-air upgrades would also account for ever-changing obstacles that we see on the road.
Again, you're scalable, and that's appealing. And if you look at the models of autonomy emerging, you have the robotaxi market, you have the licensing market, but then you have a new market emerging, fleet ownership, where I believe that you're going to have autonomous vehicle REITs backed by a KKR or Blackstone or an Apollo. They'll own the asset, they'll put it on the Uber network, the Lyft network, or perhaps another third-party network. Mm-hmm. Do you ever get to a point where Wayve licenses the technology to one of these large fleet operators that they have 10,000 vehicles, 20,000 vehicles?
Yeah, so the world that you're talking about, I mean, it exists today, right? They're just human-driven, where vehicles are, autonomous vehicles would essentially become their own asset class, right? I mean, we saw this in New York City with the taxi medallion market. But for Wayve's technology specifically, we license directly to the OEMs. That's our end customer. And so we are, supplying that vehicle intelligence. And then OEMs are the ones who would be selling to the end vehicle owners. Now, in today's world, we see a lot of pragmatic benefits about full L4 autonomy, starting with fleet ownership. But the beauty of our approach to going to market is that because we start by licensing, really performant L2 plus and L3 to consumer-owned vehicles, and then we'll be licensing L4 technology as well. From Wayve's perspective, we're able to tap into a really incredible market, everything from personally owned vehicles where people become familiar and comfortable and trusting of autonomy at that L2 plus through L3, building the desire for L4, all the way through the L4 use case. I think that L4, again, pragmatically will probably start as fleet ownership. There's economic and maintenance practicalities associated with that in the early days. But I don't think it's out of the question that L4 will eventually also become a personally owned vehicle reality.
It's going to come. I see an emerging market, and I've said this very publicly on Road to Autonomy, and I harp on it every week, pretty much practically on autonomy markets, that at some point, Wayve will get an OEM deal with an OEM, and they will use your technology to deploy robotaxis. And this week, Andrew McDonald from Uber visited you in London, and he put up a post on X, and I'm going to quote him here. Next stop, working with Wayve and automakers to put self-driving vehicles on the Uber network in multiple markets around the world. It sounds like my inclination might be coming true based on what Mr. McDonald posted on X.
You're very observant. I should trust that you are always coming through all of the latest announcements. Yes, look, we were thrilled to host Andrew this week. We always love having himself or anyone else from Uber coming through our offices, whether that be, with our San Francisco fleet or getting them in the cars here in London or Germany or Tokyo. Look, Uber has been an incredible partner and an incredible investor. The chapter of our partnership, because it's been multifaceted and longstanding, the chapter that we're currently in that we're really excited to bring to fruition is our work alongside OEMs. So being able to deploy an incredibly performant and safe L4 system alongside a production vehicle, which would come from an OEM, and ensuring that it's fit for purpose for a ride-hail use case that Uber can put into their existing fleet. It's an exciting reality, and it's one that we're actively working towards. And watch this space. I think what's been really exciting to see over the last couple of years is that there are many automakers who have L4 performant vehicles either ready today or ready on a very short time horizon that are production grade coming off assembly lines, which changes the game for scale of deployment. So we're looking forward to being able to share more.
I'm excited to read more, and I'm not going to associate this with you, but we did get a filing last week. Foxconn is officially in the automotive business. They're going to design and manufacture vehicles for Mitsubishi for the New Zealand and Australia markets. Do we ever get to a point where you would consider licensing your technology to a non-traditional OEM?
Yeah, I mean, so again, I mentioned our go-to-market path is with OEMs, with vehicle manufacturers. And one of the many benefits of that is that OEMs have an incredibly complementary skill set, right? I mean, they've got 100-year legacies in many cases of bringing a safety-critical technology, validating it, and bringing it to mass production scale. These are no small feats, right? And those skills are developed over many years in really depth and breadth of experience. And we're able to do the piece that I would say is in really high demand for the consumers. So bringing that end-to-end AI, that vehicle intelligence, and complementing their legacy of safe, performant systems. Foxconn of always thrilled to see more folks getting into the automotive game. And should they get to the point of having a performant vehicle platform that's been safety validated, we'd be thrilled to expand our OEM partnerships and investigate deployment.
I'll give you a little insight. A lot of the Foxconn folks listen to the podcast. So Foxconn, if you're smart, call Kaity over at Wayve. They're building really great technology. That's my pitch to them. The thing I really, really like about Wayve, you don't have the legacy overhead. You don't have to worry about developing a vehicle, building an assembly line, going through, as Elon says, manufacturing hell. Why was the decision made early on to focus on purely building an end-to-end AI driver and not trying to build a full-blown automotive manufacturer?
It's a great question. So maybe a bit of background. So shockingly, Wayve is the third autonomous player that I've worked at now, which is crazy because when I started my career, this career didn't even exist. So I started in automotive, got lucky enough to fall into autonomy, and now here I am at company 3. And one of the things that brought me to Wayve, beyond the underlying technology being incredible, but is the fact that Wayve has always been firm in their belief of taking a partner-first approach. And I think that that is so critically important to being successful and focused in this market. And transparently, some of that, some of it's strategic decision, and some of it is the benefit of timing to market. So being able to stand on the shoulders of others and learn from the experience of, how incredibly difficult and challenging and multifaceted it is to be vertically integrated. And what Wayve's bread and butter is, what our core focus is, and how we stay laser focused on accelerating the most performant, safe, autonomous driver is by staying focused on vehicle intelligence. So that means that we don't plan to build any hardware. We don't plan to be, the demand capture mechanism. That's why we partner with folks like Uber and others. And what this allows us to do is be really agile and be really best in class in what our specialization is. And then we can partner with people who are best in class in every other area of the value chain. So whether that be Microsoft, who's a partner and an investor on the cloud side, whether that be NVIDIA, who also happens to be a partner and an investor for SOC, or whether it be partners like Uber, who help us on our path to market and accelerating that, we're able to work with the best of the best. And we look at it as all ships rise by not having to do it all yourself in-house. So it's been an exciting ride, and I think it's one that thus far has proven to be really successful.
You made the right decision, because if you look back at your story career, you worked at an AV developer owned by an OEM. We saw how that went. Thank goodness you left. Then you worked at another AV developer that's developing an antiquated stack, and now you're at an AV developer that is scaling. You have the battle scars. When you meet with the executive team saying, okay, this is all the stuff I learned from 2 different approaches, and so that the Wayve does not make the same mistakes that your previous 2 companies made?
Another element of Wayve that I think is unique and is also one of our keys to success is that our team is incredibly diverse, but across a couple of axes. And it's a differentiator and a game changer to avoid unoriginal mistakes, to be honest. So we've got, of course, a really deep talent base that's world leading and cutting edge on the AI front, because I mentioned that's our bread and butter. But we've also got these 2 other axes or groups of talent, and one is automotive and one is autonomy. And so we've brought together teams and experience and scar tissue, but also lessons learned and inspiration from these 3 different industries, and bringing all 3 of those together, I think, is how we, again, avoid unoriginal mistakes and also think differently about the mountain ahead of us. It is both, an incredible challenge. It's, people talk about it as like the space race of a lifetime, but it's also an incredible opportunity. And so bringing together those 3 different types of folks, it makes for incredibly dynamic and interesting conversations in the room. And it keeps us all honest so that we don't repeat history.
It keeps you on your toes.
That is also true. I can say that happens daily around here.
Which is wonderful. So thinking differently and staying ahead of the curve. This week, we started getting public statements And we got a post on X from your investor and partner, NVIDIA, talking about a mapless future. That's a big pivot for NVIDIA because they bought James Wu's DeepMac back in the day, and they did a really good things with James and Mark Wheeler there. And now they were all HD map when they acquired that. Great exit for James and Mark, by the way. And now they're making public statements around Mapless. Are you influencing that? Are you showing them the technological breakthroughs that are possible with a Mapless approach?
Look, I mean, I mentioned NVIDIA's been an incredible partner. We're always in admiration of just how innovative and forward-thinking, and honestly, they're constantly reinventing how they think about the market to stay at the cutting edge. So I would say I'd love to see that they're moving towards a mapless future. I think the industry is largely coalescing around the idea that mapless is truly required in order to scale. I mentioned that OEM customers, they expect a technology that works for their consumers who live, drive, traverse roads everywhere. Mapless is a key piece to unlocking that. It means that, if a consumer is buying the automated technology, they can take the vehicle everywhere that they need to get. And it means that if it's a fleet, they have a path to a profitable business because they're not constrained to a subset of their business demand. They can use that fleet and amortize their costs against their most valuable miles because they're not restricted to 100 miles or 200 square miles of terrain. So thrilled to see NVIDIA also moving to a mapless future, and we'll continue on the same track.
Mapless is scalable. Pre-mapping is not scalable, and if you look at it from a cost structure, it's very expensive. I mean, operational, it's very cumbersome. So you have to get to a mapless future. For a viewer or listener that might be saying, "Oh, what's mapless?" How would you describe a mapless approach to autonomy?
I think to describe a mapless approach, you might have to start by describing a mapped approach. So the way I'd describe it, for those who aren't familiar with the mapping industry, is with high definition maps, or what we call HD maps. What it requires is that a vehicle that is equipped with very specialized high definition sensors has to traverse every square inch of roads that it wants to be able to drive on in autonomous mode. So it has to traverse those roads multiple times over. That means that you've got to build out vehicles to go acquire those mapping miles. It means that as the roads change, which I mentioned my commute earlier, and changing traffic and changing curbside and, construction, as those roads change, you have to remap. So the maps have to constantly be maintained. You have to pay for the operations to go capture those mapped miles. And also, it's really a challenge from a regulatory point of view because street owners don't want vehicle miles traveled on the road, adding to congestion, potentially impacting safety, et cetera. So it's a challenge from a lot of different angles to require a mapped approach. And the culmination of that is that the only places that you're able to operate your technology are the ones that have maps that are updated and accurate, which means you have to operate in a geo-fence. So now that we see what the mapped world looks like, how would I describe a mapless world? You're able to take a vehicle and traverse new areas, sight unseen, and still have a performant, safe technology. So that means that you can drive your vehicle without boundaries wherever you might need to take it, whether that be for, to the airport, on a long haul commute, on a road trip, or just your daily errands around town. It means that you're able to leverage your vehicle autonomy to use your vehicle exactly how you see fit.
And that's valuable at the end of the day. That's truly valuable. On the vehicle, I own a vehicle, you own a vehicle, other individuals, majority of individuals own vehicles, but they're all different types. You might have an SUV, I might have a sedan, another individual might have a larger vehicle or a crossover or a hybrid. How do you adapt the Wayve Driver to various different vehicle platforms? If you look at Nissan, your partner Nissan, they make all sorts of different types of vehicles.
Yeah, this is a great question. So we talked a bit about the generalization to new geographies, and I mentioned with 500 hours worth of data, we could take our vehicle from the UK to the US and it was driving at the same level of performance. Another key differentiator of our technology is we can generalize across vehicle platforms. So when we work with OEM partners, that means that we can use the same vehicle intelligence across, a sedan or an SUV or a truck, because our technology is decoupled. Our software technology is decoupled from hardware. So we can work with OEMs to deploy our vehicle intelligence across many vehicle platforms. And what we've shown is that it actually takes about 100 hours of sampled data in order to get the same level of performance on vehicle model number 2 is vehicle model number one. And when we take data from vehicle model number two and train our models with it, performance for vehicle model two and vehicle model one both rise. So that diversity of data allows us to accelerate performance across a variety of different vehicle platforms. So generalization isn't just geographically, it's also on different hardware in different vehicles. So when we get back to that point of scalability, OEMs love this because an investment in one technology is able to be deployed against many different models and lines.
I'll give you another kid's term, happy camper. That's really
Love that.
That's what it comes down to. How do the sensors work? Does Wayve recommend sensors? I know you use the existing sensors. Do you recommend when you're developing or co-developing certain placements, or how does that come together?
We are flexible for all different sensor modalities and layouts. And so when we partner with an OEM, what we're able to do is we're able to work alongside them to say, what sensors do you already have planned on your production vehicles? Here's the level of autonomy that we're able to deliver, both relative to the SoC that you have on board, as well as the sensor layout that you have existing. And what this enables OEMs to do, I mentioned that we can decouple hardware from the software, is they can choose and specify their hardware layout for their vehicles, both in terms of their preferred sensor suite, whether that be, radar vision, whether that be camera, LiDAR, radar, different levels of performance on their SoC, depending on the price point for the end consumer vehicle. We can work with what they have existing and offer different autonomy solutions for each level. You can think that performance kind of naturally scales relative to the level of performance of the SoC. And then when we think about different sensor layouts for level 2 plus, there's an incredible amount of diversity that supports a really performant L2 plus system. And then when we get into L3 and L4, where we remove the driver as the redundant system and we need to build in more redundancy on the platform, that's where there's some additional minimum requirements for redundancies. But ultimately, we put that decision and that power back into the OEM's hands to make the decision on what's best for them based on their desired BOM cost and also their liability and safety requirements.
Is it fair to say that Wayve is sensor agnostic?
We often use that term, yes. We say sensor agnostic, and that means, even today, what we ingest in terms of data, on-road data, we often talk about vision. I think it's the most easy to wrap our minds around of vision cameras. Yes, we know that those are equipped on vehicles today. But we also work with our OEM partners to ingest not only vision or camera data from on-road data, but radar data, LiDAR data. These are all inputs that we're able to ingest in order to increase the performance of our vehicles. And a differentiation of our approach is that we're actually able to work with even non-OEM partners in order to ingest data. So we work with third-party dash cam providers to really get the diversity of data at scale. So let's call it like huge volume of data when we think about getting these edge cases and the diversity from many different geographies. We ingest even things like the UK highway code. So that's the rules of the road for the UK. That's a written text, and we're able to ingest it. So because we use end-to-end AI, we have multiple different modalities that can contribute to our vehicle intelligence, including whatever sensors the OEMs have on their vehicles.
If Wayve didn't take an end-to-end approach, would you be able to scale as fast as you are today?
We believe that end-to-end AI is a key unlock to scalability from a generalization perspective, from a commercial and economic perspective, and from an ultimate operational perspective. Again, removing the requirements around things like geo-fences. It truly is a game changer compared to the traditional approach to autonomy.
And you're onto something when you start seeing marketing messages, and I'm going to name it here because I literally fell out of my chair. You call me Sherlock Holmes or Clue Holmes. Waymo, for the first time last week, used the term generalized AI driver in a public statement. I said, holy wowzers. It validates your whole approach that Wayve has been pioneering since the beginning. You're at the top of the wave. We're getting a really good break here, and you're cruising. Are you feeling more momentum in your back as you're starting to see the terms that Wayve has pioneered and the development techniques that they pioneered is now starting to come into the mainstream of the autonomy market?
I will call you Sherlock on that one, Grayson. Again, points for observancy. So, yes, of course, it feels great that these types of terms are becoming more mainstream in the industry. I think also having clarity and greater understanding of what these terms mean benefits everybody. So we all know what to expect, and what should be desired and what's important metrics for success when we're developing autonomy technologies, right? But ultimately, I look at, wind at our back right now. I think of for the entire autonomous industry, it feels like we're at that moment where you're right at the top of a roller coaster and the gravity is about to pull you over and you can feel it. The anticipation is so thick. I feel like we're right at the crest at the top of the roller coaster, and it's thrilling and it's validating to see the industry as a whole be right on the edge of true deployment at scale so we can bring these benefits to reality. So that's the piece I think of when I think of wind at our back. And I also, the more people that adopt, similar approaches or that value the right factors that allow us to democratize access to this technology, the better it is for everybody and all ships rise. So while, of course, yes, I'm thrilled that other folks are using the term generalization, I think about the impacts to the industry and getting this technology on the road as the ultimate win.
The industry is it's clearly going. You're right. We're about to take off like a SpaceX rocket ship. But the other interesting thing that's happening, I was at dinner last night speaking to an individual. They knew all about they knew about AVs. I said, "What the heck?" It's before. Oh, what's this? Oh, you're the robot guy? No, I'm not the robot guy. They start asking. There's a high level of interest now from the general public around autonomy and being able to experience rides. Since the game plan is, let's call a spade, you're going to work with multiple OEMs across the world. From a consumer standpoint, how will the consumer know that, let's call it, Acme OEM system is powered by Wayve? How are they going to know that your technology is embedded in a product that they're either leasing, buying, or riding in a robotaxi?
I mean, our business model is B2B2C, essentially, right? The OEMs are our end customer. However, that consumer acceptance and trust and demand is also something that's critically important to, uptick, or I should even say for opting in of the technology. And so one of the things that we're really excited about, and again, one of the many benefits about our approach and go to market of starting with L2 plus and traversing rapidly into L4 is that we're able to give consumers exposure to a performant autonomous system in a way where they still are monitoring the system, where they're engaged. That allows us to build trust, to build understanding of what they want and need in order to opt into the technology, in order to make sure that they're using it at every chance that they can. Those are hugely valuable learnings for Wayve to develop something that OEMs and consumers want, and also for end consumers to get familiar and build trust and know what it is that they want out of a product. I mean, we've heard that classic iPhone story, right? Of, someone goes to poll, consumers, and they say, "Oh, would you ever want a phone without buttons?" I'm dating myself here, but that's like back in the early 2000s. Would you ever want a phone without buttons? And of course, everybody says, absolutely not. I need my phone to have buttons. How would I text otherwise? And then, of course, the iPhone comes out, and now look, I don't think I know a single person who has a phone with buttons anymore. I think autonomy is similar. There are very, very few proof points in the market of what great looks like. And that's what we're really excited to deliver, to defining a new market category where consumers know to demand it because it's the most performant solution out there. So those are the things that we look forward to.
And it's also the safest. I almost got kidnapped last night. I took a ride share.
Oh, this took a turn.
Yeah, I took a ride share ride home. I go out. I have these two gentlemen. We go out once a week together, and we have one rule that we go out. Nobody drives. That's the rule, because we like to drink wine. So that's the rule. Nobody drives. And this
sage advice, though. Yes,
it's very good advice, and all the bartenders know. They're proud of me, and I get a little heavier pour because they know I don't drive. And I'm not going to name this company out of respect for the company. And the individual gets in, I get in the car, and I live on an island. He starts trying. I'm like, "What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing?" I pull over immediately. I get out and I start running. But if I was in an AV, that situation wouldn't happen. So it's not just the technology breakthroughs. AVs are going to make our roads safer. They're also going to make the experience safer for passengers, such as the incident that I had last night. What we do know, Kaity, is Wayve is building the future. What I'd love to see more than anything is a Wayve company shot of everybody riding a big break, either in the Maldives or somewhere in Australia, and doing it right. In your opinion, what is the future of Wayve?
The future of Wayve is where Maybe let me take a step back. So, I happen to also be 6 months pregnant with my first child. So, we're very excited. Um, and I think of it as the personal goal for me, or how I relate this back to myself, is I hope my daughter never has to get a driver's license unless she chooses to. And I hope that, when I'm retired many, many years from now, and, I'm telling my child, or my children maybe at that point, telling them about what I did in my career, and I say, oh, and I was part of the first deployments of autonomous technology, and my kids or my grandkids are going to look at me and they're going to say, like, cool, grandma, like the thing that takes us to school every day, like old news. And they're going to think that I did something really boring for my job. And meanwhile, that will be the mark of success, because it will be so normalized, it's not noteworthy. And I think of that as the ultimate future. Um, but perhaps more specifically, to Wayve's journey, this vehicle intelligence, right now, it's exactly that, vehicle intelligence. But what we're building is a foundation model that has generalized intelligence. And so our first use case in the first market that we think will have huge benefits is on-road autonomy, is putting this in vehicles. But the intelligence in, years from now, it can be adapted to anything where AI meets robotics. So it can power off-road vehicles. It could power vehicles that are in a warehouse, so that our Amazon 2-day packages or Amazon 1-day packages instead. It could power humanoid robotics. And so the ultimate, the North Star vision, once we earn the right by deploying a really performant, safe on-road technology, is to be that intelligent, trusted AI partner throughout life, whatever use case that takes.
It's beautiful. Congratulations. Congratulations on your pregnancy. I have a young daughter, and she went in her first AV at 2. And she's been in every Waymo from the Firefly up. And she's been in all the shuttles, and she's been in the autonomous stuff. Remember all those old vehicles?
Yeah.
She was in the motional vehicles, the Waymo vehicles. She's been in every AV that's on the road, and I have a wall in my studio with all these different AVs in the years that she went in. I was like, oh, as she grows up, all the vehicles change. And it's fun because when you expose children to this technology, they talk about it. And she did a presentation, I think it might have been 3rd grade, 4th grade, where she talked about AVs, and then Daddy got to go in to talk all about AVs. And it sparked this imagination, because when you expose children to this technology, I believe you're going to unlock something, you're going to ignite something, and they're going to go on to change the world, and they're going to build a better world. And the more automation we have in the world, and I call it dad mode, the better I'm going to sleep at night if they're out, because I know, okay, where you are. And if you're me being a dad of a daughter, oh, you're going to your boyfriend's house, boop, lock doors, turn car, come home. I call that dad mode. And that's going to be a really great thing, but it's going to make it safer. And I'm not going to have to go through the anxiety and stress that my parents went. Are you getting in a car with a drunk driver? Because AVs don't drink and drive. And you're really, truly building the future. I wish you nothing but success at Wayve, and I can't wait to go surfing with you and the Wayve team. As we look to wrap up this insightful conversation for today, Kaity, what would you like our listeners and viewers to take away with them?
Ooh, just one thing that I hope that folks take away is, the era of an AI-driven vehicle. It's here. It's now. So don't sleep on it.
Don't sleep on it. End-to-end AI is the future. Mapless is coming. It's the only way to scale autonomy profitably. The future is bright. The future is autonomous. The future is Wayve. Kaity, thank you so much for coming on the road to autonomy today.
Thank you for having me. Loved the conversation. Always glad to chat.
It was fun.